Hey, Jess. Hey, guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Vincent. I taught yoga for about 14 years. I'm a published author. I wrote or translated the first Yoga Sutras. So the Yoga Sutras is the study we're going to do right now. We're going to study the first pada. What are the Yoga Sutras? The Yoga Sutras are the guide to unentanglement, the guide to omniscience, the guide to omnipresence. It's the text that tells you how to overcome attachment of the soul to the physical world and live in a place of peaceful bliss. How to unattach your soul from the entanglement of pain and suffering. So when I go over the sutras, we'll go over it. If you have any questions about the sutras, you can ask. But the Buddha says you're supposed to read the sutra. Then after you read the sutra, contemplate it. Then when you contemplate the sutra, then you want to embody the meaning of the sutra. And if you can embody all of the 200 sutras in the Yoga Sutras, you'll be freed from suffering, from unhappiness, from pain. You live in a place what's called samadhi, or absorption of the soul into the present moment. You'll be absorbed in the present moment. So this is Sutra 1.1. Yoga takes place now. Yoga happens in this moment. So here, Patanjali, he's the guy who wrote the Yoga Sutras. He's trying to basically sum up yoga for you in one line. What is yoga? Yoga Atta Asanam. Yoga is being fully present in the present moment. Okay, simple enough, right? But if being fully present in the present moment, how come everybody isn't fully present in the present moment? How come everybody's stressed out about this, worried about that? So it's really not that simple, is it? So he goes on to say, the second sutra, yoga is the stilling of the mind. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga is keeping the mind calm and focused. So when we're meditating, when we're doing our yoga, when we're doing our practice, we might notice that thoughts come up, disturbing thoughts come up, stressful thoughts come up. I don't want to lose my house. I'm worried about my mother or my girlfriend. What if this happens? What if that happens? Then opinions come up, right? Like, oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, that's so ugly. So the mind is constantly going all the time. So yoga is the ability to stop the mind from fluctuating, from thinking, from contemplating, the ability to still your mind. Sutra 1.3, then the mind rests within the soul. Second translation, then the seer dwells within its own light. Third translation, the spirit experiences itself when the mind is still. So here in yoga, they talk about soul and they talk about God. In the Buddhism, when you get into it, the Buddha didn't talk about God. Now, my personal opinion is that the Buddha didn't speak about God because as soon as he mentioned God, people argued about it. And also it was when you mention God, you're mentioning like this permanent thing in the sky, whereas what Buddha was trying to get people to do was be one with all of existence. So it's not that Buddha denied there's a God, it was just that Buddha was one with all existence. But the Yoga Sutras, they openly talk about God and the soul. So here the mind rests within the soul. So when your mind is still, when you're calm, your mind and your soul become one. 1.4. Otherwise, the soul identifies itself with the fluctuating consciousness. So in my translation, I'm the only person who does comparative reasoning translations. There is nobody else who's done a comparative reasoning translation. Why did I do the comparative reasoning translation? Because you compare each line to each other line, and it gives you the full meaning of what the original person who spoke it was trying to say. So because they spoke it in Sanskrit, because they spoke it in these different languages, it's hard to really understand what it says, because in Sanskrit it's Vitti Sarupayam Itaratracha. So when you're going from Sanskrit over to English, it's hard to translate an original spoken language into English. Not that it's hard, but there's loss in translation in words. So the comparative reasoning allows you to really grasp the full translation. So the second translation I give for Sutra 1.4 is, at other times emptiness assumes the form of the movements of the mind. The spirit identifies itself with mental states when the mind is moving. Otherwise, the seer becomes attached to that which is impermanent. So what is he trying to say? It basically, your soul becomes attached to worldly things. And that's what causes you to go into samsara, the cycle of pain and pleasure, the cycle of happiness and sorrow, the cycle of life and death. Sutra 1.5. The fluctuations in consciousness are 5 in origin. They may be detectable or hidden, painful or painless. Let me read this one to you again. Sutra 1.5. The fluctuations in consciousness are 5 in origin. They may be detectable or hidden, painful or painless. Basically, we look at something, right? You look at me. Okay, that's Vincent. Then you make an opinion. Oh, I like Vincent. Oh, I don't like Vincent, right? Oh, Vincent looks handsome. Oh, Vincent is ugly, right? As soon as your mind makes that decision, this is pretty, that's ugly. As soon as your mind makes that decision, it splits it so that it's always judging this is good, this is bad. As soon as it judges what's good and what's bad, it enters into samsara, because you're always thinking this is beautiful, this is ugly. So we end up running from what's ugly and running towards what's beautiful. And that causes us not to be at ease, not to be happy, not to be relaxed. So yoga is the art of how to make your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul one, and to overcome the judgment, or the afflictions is what it's called. The 5 afflictions that cause you to have pain, unhappiness, sorrow, suffering for all of humankind. So the second translation for Sutra 1.5, there are 5 categories of mental movements. They can bring affliction or be free from affliction. Sutra 1.6. We're just going to do the first pada today. There's 50 sutras, about 50 sutras in the first pada. Sutra 1.6. They are caused by right knowledge, wrong knowledge, delusion, sleep, and remembrance of things past. So the things that cause affliction are right knowledge, wrong knowledge, delusion, sleep, and remembrance of things past. The sutras, they're very short, but they're extremely potent lines of information. They're very, very potent lines. So it's 8 words, but it has such a deep meaning to it. I give 3 translations for Sutra 1.6. They are correct knowledge, false assessment, imagination, sleep, and memory. So these are the 5 things that cause your mind to go into fluctuation, to go into thinking. They are proper judgment, misunderstanding, uncertainty, sleep, and memory. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I remember this, right? Sutra 1.7. The sources of correct knowledge are direct perception, logical reasoning, and factual text. So if it's not through your own personal experience and you can't logically deduce it to be real, and it's not from a text that is 100% real, you can't take it as truth. The only truth is from things that you know from your experience, from your logical deduction, mathematics, gravity, physics, things like that, and factual text. And the Yoga Sutras is definitely a factual text. The second translation, right knowledge comes from direct perception, inference, and truthful testimony. Sutra 1.8. Wrong knowledge originates from a distorted understanding of what is real. This sutra, I can't even express to you how important these sutras are. They are so important. Sutra 1.8. Wrong knowledge originates from a distorted understanding of what is real. What is wrong knowledge? It comes from delusion. You're assuming things to be real. Delusion is as simple as like worry. Worry is actually delusion. So if you're worried about something, it's actually considered to be delusion because it's based on wrong understanding and lack of knowledge. You're worried about something because you lost the understanding of infinity and eternity and impermanence. That's why you're worried, right? You have doubt. You lack the knowledge to free yourself from doubt. Second translation, erroneous knowledge is founded upon information that is non-factual or illusionary. Third translation, false understanding of what is real results in false knowledge. Sutra 1.9. Uncertainty arises when knowledge is based on words alone and is devoid of reality as its basis. Meditate on this one for a second. Uncertainty arises when knowledge is based on words alone and is devoid of reality as its basis. I give two translations for this. Delusion originates from words that are not true to reality. Sutra 110. Dreamless sleep is the mind state that is absent of perception. Sleep is the non-deliberate absence of knowledge and or thought waves. This is important because in the sutras to come, Patanjali describes that the yogi should meditate on three states. The awakened state, that's the state when you're wide awake at noon. You're wide awake, you're moving around, the awakened state. Then the dreamless state, which is called nidra in Sanskrit and yoga, the nidra state, that's the point where you hit your pillow and you're completely unconscious before you dream. So Patanjali says the yogi has to meditate on three states. The conscious state, the dreamless state, the state between consciousness and dream sleep, and the sleep state. He says if you meditate on those three mental states, those three states of consciousness, that they become one and you gain super consciousness, samadhi, absorption of the soul, the mind, and the body in the present moment. Sutra 111, 111. Memory is the unaltered remembrance of words and experiences. Second translation. Memory is where the experience of an object is retained. Third translation. When an object previously experienced comes back to consciousness, that is memory. Fourth translation. Memory is clasping onto objects perceived. Sutra 112. Repeated practice and non-attachment control these five fluctuations of the mind. Regular practice and renunciation still the fluctuations of consciousness. So by meditating regularly and not chasing after worldly affairs, it frees the mind from constantly obsessing on things that are impermanent. 113. Effort towards steadiness of mind is practice. Practice is mental volition to keep the mind still. Practice is continuous effort to still the fluctuations in consciousness. So when you see me sitting there, when you see the yogi sitting there, I know a lot of us, we look at people meditating and we think that they're going home. But if you're actually meditating, if you really have a meditation practice, you're practicing awareness of body, mind, and breath, but you're also practicing stopping the mind from thinking, from grasping, stilling the mind. Sutra 114. Practice becomes firmly grounded when practiced vigilantly for a long time. So you can't just meditate once a month. You have to meditate religiously if you want to actually attain samadhi, nirvana. Well, because if you don't attain samadhi or nirvana, there's consequences of not doing that. See? So the consequences are unhappiness, physical suffering, stress, pain, sorrow. All of these things are causes that are caused by the attachment. And by practicing these practices, not only do you have to understand the words, but you also have to practice the practices along with the words if you want to achieve nirvana, enlightenment, or samadhi is what they call it. In the Yoga Sutras, it's called samadhi. Is it the same thing? The Buddhists and the yogis argue, but if you're up in the higher levels of samadhi or jhana, I mean, it's beyond words at that point. Sutra 115. Renunciation is the practice of freedom from desire. Sutra 115. Non-attachment is the state of mental mastery, free from cravings for sense objects. Let me read that again. Non-attachment is the state of mental mastery, free from cravings for sense objects. Sutra 115. Sutra 116. The highest level of renunciation is when one transcends all earthly attachments and perceives the soul. True detachment is lack of desire for any impermanent formations. It is enforced when one experiences the spirit. Let's meditate on it for a minute. Sutra 117. Continued effort and non-attachment develops 4 types of samadhi: self-analysis, union, bliss, and the experience of pure being. Second translation. Complete realization follows reasoning, reflection, rejoicing, and the experience of the blissful light of consciousness. I give 3 translations for Sutra 117. Practice and detachment develops 4 types of samadhi. These are vitarka samadhi, reasoning, vichara samadhi, reflection, ananda samadhi, joy, and asmita samadhi, the experience of pure I amness. Sutra 118. When practice of cessation of mental fluctuations is firmly rooted, only the impressions remain. Second sutra, or the second translation of Sutra 118. The emptiness that occurs in these experiences is asamprajnata samadhi. At this level, dormant hidden impressions spring up during moments of awareness, creating fluctuations which disturb the purity of consciousness. So don't get overwhelmed by all of the Sanskrit names when they say asamprajnata samadhi. Samadhi means absorption. Samadhi means a deep level of concentration, like being able to concentrate at a spiritual level. But the words before it, you don't really have to understand if you understand that they're reasoning, thinking, reflection. Why did that happen? Did I do the right thing? Joy. Oh, I did do the right thing. And the experience of I amness. The experience of I amness is considered to be when you look at an object and you're viewing the object without a conceptual opinion of it. That's what the pure I amness is supposed to be. So moving right along to Sutra 119. If it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy to attain the high levels of samadhi or enlightenment or nirvana or spiritual freedom, liberation, everybody would do it. So it takes discipline, it takes practice, and you're not chasing pleasures. When you're doing your study, you're not chasing pleasures. So for beings without bodies and whose physical forms have become one with the primordial material energy of which all matter is composed, mental processes focus on existence alone. So in asamprajnata samadhi, one may experience existence without a body or become one with nature. This sometimes leads to isolation, deep loneliness, or intense longing. Sutra 1119, I don't consider to be one of the important sutras, but they're just saying, like, if you're meditating alone in the woods and you lose feeling or conscious of your body and you reach a state of deep loneliness, that's normal on the way to meditation. on the way to nirvana. That's something that normally happens to practitioners. So Sutra 120, one must practice with confidence, vigor, alert memory, and power of absorption to break this spiritual complacency. For others, samadhi is surpassed by faith, vigorous endeavor, memory, contemplation, and discernment. So if you come to a place of sadness, sorrow in your practice, you're supposed to practice with vigor and you'll surpass. That's what it's saying. Sutra 121, those who practice vigorously with intensity are close to the goal. Sutra 122, there are differences between those who are half-stepping, average, and serious about their practice. Sutra 123, thanks for joining. Or the consciousness may be stilled by deep meditation on God and total surrender to Him. Or the mind may be restrained by concentrating on where all energy comes from. So by focusing your mind on God or where all the energy has come from is one of the ways to still the mind. If you're just coming in, this is the Yoga Sutras, the first pada. It's the key to nirvana or enlightenment. This is my translation. I wrote this, translated it. So we're on Sutra 124. We're doing the first pada. If you're hearing these words, it's good fortune for you. It's good karma for you. Just to hear one word of this text is considered to be really good karma. The Supreme Being is God, entirely free from conflicts, unaffected by actions, and untouched by cause and effect. Second translation. God is the source of all energy, free from afflictions, actions, the ripening and accumulated karma, aversion, and desire. Sutra 125. God is the origin of all energy and knowledge. For the Creator, the seed of omniscience has grown to a state that is unsurpassable. God is the ultimate source of the light of wisdom. Sutra 126. God is the Alpha and the Omega, the teacher of all beings with no beginning and no end. Sutra 127. God's sound form is Om. So when you see the yogis going Om, we're meditating on God's sound form, on God's form. Sutra 128, repetition of the syllable Om with full presence of mind, body, and soul will allow one to realize its full significance. After you hear the sutra, you're supposed to, After you hear the sutra, you're supposed to meditate on the word and then embody its meaning, embody its essence, is what they say. You have to hear the sutra and then embody the essence of the sutra. Sutra 130. The hindrances to spiritual enlightenment are disease, inertia, doubt, carelessness, laziness, sensuality, erroneous views, failure to keep one understanding firmly grounded, and slipping from the ground gained. Sutra 131. The symptoms that accompany these hindrances are pain, despair, anxiety, and disturbed breathing. See, now these two sutras here, 130 and 131, are extremely important. They're very important. Here, what's being said is they're telling you what the hindrances to enlightenment are. They're disease, dis-ease, not being at ease, stress, worry, fear, doubt, dukkha, suffering. Inertia, that's laziness. I don't want to practice. I'd rather just eat ice cream. Doubt is worry, fear. They say doubt is rooted in fear of death. is the root for all doubt and worry. Scared to die. Carelessness is lack of mindfulness. Laziness, sensuality, always chasing the pleasures of the senses. Beauty, food, perfume, always looking for pleasure in the senses, sensuality. Erroneous views is not being able to see infinity, not being able to see the full picture, having wrong thoughts. Buddha would describe it as you don't have enough knowledge. You don't understand that you're going to die. You don't understand that everything's going to fade away. When you look at the beginning of something, you don't see its ending. You're blinded. You can't see the full picture. That's what the erroneous views is. Lack of knowledge, wrong view. You can't see the world for what it is because you don't have the knowledge. You're blinded by your own desires and opinions. Failure to keep one understanding firmly grounded and slipping from the ground gained. So that's like, you just understood that. You're studying your sutras. You understand infinity. You've taken philosophy to the level where you're one with everything. And then you put on a movie and completely forget about it. So that's what that is. And then in the Sutra 131, he's telling you the symptoms that accompany these. So it's not just that we have disease, inertia, doubt, carelessness, laziness, sensuality, erroneous views. It's that these actions have things that accompany them. There are results of these actions. The results that accompany these actions, if you don't purify them, the results are pain. So here they're telling you you're in pain because of something. Something is causing you pain. That is what's causing you pain. Then it says despair, anxiety, and disturbed breathing. So we get pain, we get despair, we get anxiety, our breathing gets disturbed. I give two translations for this. Distress, depression, unsteadiness of the body, and irregular breathing further distract the mind. So Sutra 130 and 131 are extremely important. They're two very important sutras. I'll let you know which of them are extremely important and which ones are less important, but he breaks it down into 200 and something sutras. So when he's explaining omniscience in 200 sentences, I mean, he did a really good job. Sutra 133, inner peace is achieved and maintained by cultivating friendliness towards those who are happy, compassion for those who suffer, goodwill towards the virtuous, and indifference towards the non-virtuous. So this right here, 133, I must have repeated this sutra hundreds of times, and I still have to repeat it. Because how many times you find yourself complaining about someone or somebody who is unrighteous, you get nasty or you get upset, somebody doesn't meet your levels or you get lied to or something like that, it gets you really pissed. So that these things here, friendliness towards those who are happy, compassion for those who suffer, goodwill towards the virtuous, and indifference towards the non-virtuous, okay? So Sutra 133 is important because it tells you how to avoid falling into samsara, all right? Sutra 134, the mind can also be calmed by holding the breath after exhalation. Now, this one right here, see, this is both in the yoga and the Buddhism. Breath control and breath observation are extremely important. There are different techniques. This pranayama in yoga differs a little bit from anapanasati in Buddhism because the pranayama, a lot of it is controlled breathing, where anapanasati is observing of breath, but they are both breath work. And no matter how you break it down, you're still paying attention to body first, awareness of body, and awareness of breath. Both of them have to be done. And if you're learning traditional yoga, 8 limbs, it's body awareness, body strength, then breath awareness, then emotional awareness, then mind awareness, thought awareness. So you still have to be aware of breath. But if you hold the breath after exhalation, there's a moment of steadiness, is what they're telling you. Or by contemplation of an object that helps maintain steadiness of mind and consciousness. So anything that can keep your mind's attention for a second. I mean, the best modern day example of this is Netflix. If you put a movie on Netflix, it keeps your attention. You're like, if you put something on, it doesn't keep your attention, you're like, oh, I don't want to watch that. So by contemplating an object, it helps you maintain steadiness of mind. Anything that you like, if you can focus your mind on something, that's teaching you what it's like to have your mind focused. Or by concentrating on a luminous, blissful light within. See, 136 brings up so much. What is the light within? In your soul, there's a light. And in the Vedas, it describes this light in the Vedas. And there's a fire and there's a light in there. So by concentrating on the inner right chamber of the heart, or the light of the soul, some people say it's the inner right chamber of the heart. Some people say it's the size of a hair and it's between your eyes and your third eye. Either way, it's the soul. So by focusing on the light of the soul, you can have steadiness. I give 3 translations for this because it covers a lot. Like they're describing it to you in a very concise type of way, but it's universally correct. Or inner stability is gained by remaining free of sorrow and filled with light. Or inner stability is gained by contemplation of pure light and consciousness. So that's Sutra 136, very important. Sutra 137. Or when the consciousness is free from longing, when we're free from desire, when we're content. That's why I have this tattooed here, contentment. Practicing being content with what you have. Or by contemplating a mind that is free from attachments, one can achieve stillness. Let me read that one to you again. Meditate on this one for a second. Or by contemplating a mind that is free from attachments, one can achieve stillness. Well, do you like pain? Do you like being in pain? Some people do. Do you like suffering, emotional suffering, mental suffering, death, the loss of a loved one? Do you like these things? Of course not. So by developing the stillness and the inner peace, you can transcend it. That's what the Yoga Sutras is about. Or by focusing on enlightened beings who are free from desires and attachment, whose demeanor is calm and tranquil. Or by contemplating divine objects. So that was Sutra 137. So Sutra 138. Or by concentrating on the consciousness experienced while dreaming during the dreamless state. This is what I said before. Or one can steady the mind by using the knowledge obtained from an experience had during dreaming sleep and deep sleep. So here, this is extremely important, and I've never heard it in the Buddhist text. They don't have this in the Dhammapada. Doesn't say it there. So this is why the Yoga Sutras are such a special text for me. I've been meditating on the 3 states for a long time now, since my yoga training. So like 14 years I've been doing it. So I have prophetic dreams. I get messages through my dreams from the universe. So I meditate on the point where I'm conscious. I actually pay attention when I wake up to when I'm fully conscious and creating. And then from the time I go to sleep, if you've ever laid down on the pillow where you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get to sleep. I have a stressful day tomorrow. You can't sleep. You're rolling around on your pillow. You have to wake up. You're so stressed out. So when you're there on the pillow, the yogis, they're supposed to meditate on that state in that moment, then meditate on the dreamless state. So when you lay your head down on the pillow to the point where you're completely unconscious, you have to meditate on the point where you're completely unconscious. You might be unconscious, but there is consciousness there. The universe is still continuing, right? So you meditate on the dreamless sleep, then you meditate on the point where you're dreaming. So from the point where you're dreamless to the point where you're dreaming, there is some kind of a consciousness there if you meditate on it. And then you want to bring those 3 states of consciousness together as one. We're moving on to Sutra 139. We only got a couple sutras left. There's like 100, let's see, There's 51 sutras in the first pada. We're just doing the first pada today. We're going to do all 4 padas. This is going to be a continuous, ongoing Yoga Sutra study. I'll be answering questions about the text. I'm going to be going over the text a lot in the upcoming months. We're going to study the Yoga Sutras. This is my translation. I translated the sutras. I meditated on them for 9 months, read 5 copies, read the Sanskrit, translated the Sanskrit. So I practiced yoga 14 years, maybe more than that, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years. And I've been studying the Yoga Sutras for about 13 years. So this is my translation. My translation is available on Amazon. Yoga Sutras by Vincent. This is Sutra 139. Or the mind becomes concentrated and still by meditating on anything one chooses. So basically, let's say money. In one of the books I read, they said to increase your manifestation skills, you want to focus your mind for one object at a time. So what you would do is you would visualize a money sign or a dollar bill in your mind and try to focus on that for as long as possible. So it's that simple. Doing that calms your mind. If the mind is perturbed, it can't concentrate. It can't be peaceful. It has to be calmed and relaxed and focused. When concentration is mastered, one gains mastery of the smallest to largest dimensions. That's why I love the Yoga Sutras. As a result of mental serenity and benevolence, one gains control over the smallest atoms to infinite masses. Mastery of contemplation endows the practitioner power over the smallest particles to the greatest magnitude. Now again, in the Dhammapada, which I'm going to be doing the Dhammapada studies coming up, they don't really talk too much about spiritual powers. In the Yoga Sutras, they do. In the Yoga Sutras, they talk about the spiritual powers gained by mastering concentration, and they tell you how they're good that you can use to survive in your physical life, but in your spiritual life, they're actually a hindrance. So the Yoga Sutras goes into the spiritual powers, how to get them, how they occur. The Yoga Sutras is definitely a very, very special text. There's nothing else like the Yoga Sutras. When the mind and the heart are purified, the practitioner realizes that the knower, knowable, and knowledge are one. The mind is like a mirror that has had the dust wiped clean. So if you have any questions or anything like that, put them in the message. Please put them in the message and I'll answer your question on the text. Now I give 4 translations for Sutra 141, but we're just going to give the first one. No, we'll give 2. When the movements of the mind weaken, it becomes like a clear diamond, assuming the form of the perceiver, the process of perception, and the object of perception. Sutra 142. At this stage called Savitarka Samadhi, the word, meaning, and content are blended, becoming special wisdom. So here in Sutra 142, you're transcending regular consciousness and mundane knowledge to attain a state of spiritual transcendental wisdom, which leads to omniscience and omnipresence. This is what yoga is. Since I wrote the book, I had 5 people, they haven't read my book. One of them was like, what do you think, you're omniscient? I'm trying to have a normal conversation with the person. I'm just talking with them normally. They go, what do you think, you're omniscient? I'm like, well, obviously you didn't read my book. It's about omniscience. It's a 2,000-year-old text and it tells you how to become omniscient. Did you read it? No, they didn't read it. They can't even take in the first line of the sutras, let alone 5 sutras. The samadhi in which name, form, and knowledge combine is called samadhi with deliberation. In Nivitarka Samadhi, you realize the difference between memory and intellectual illumination. Your memory becomes cleansed and the light of consciousness shines with blissful purity. I give 2 translations for this. When the memory is purified, then the object of concentration shines alone, without reflection, devoid of the distinction of name and quality. This is Nirvitarka Samadhi, or Samadhi without deliberation. I'm born in New York. Savitarka Samadhi, deliberate, and Nirvichara Samadhi, non-deliberate, are the contemplation of the spiritual or the subtle aspects. The focused examination of the subtle aspects of the nature of something is also explained as deliberate or non-deliberate. That this is, you look at a ball of plutonium. You look at it, it's a metal. But if you examine it further, there's atoms. If you examine the atoms further, you can split the atoms and cause an atomic bomb. So this is when you're looking into objects past their physical appearance. All objects, all phenomena are impermanent. They're all impermanent. So any type of phenomena is impermanent. And when you look at it, you form an opinion on it. I like this. I don't like that. As soon as you do that, you lose the knowledge that it's going to eventually fade away. See? So as soon as you lose concentration, you fall back into the states of worry and doubt. So that the physical strength has to be developed, the physical health has to be developed, the concentration has to be developed. And you have to build your concentration and study as you go. Otherwise, you fall back into samsara. This is the teachings of the Yoga Sutras. They match the teachings of the Buddha. There's no, if you read the Yoga Sutras and you read the Dhammapada, there's no discrepancies with them. It's just that the Yoga Sutras approach it differently. There are ways in which the Yoga Sutras are superior, and there are ways in which the Dhammapada is superior. But the Yoga Sutras only has about 200 sutras, whereas the Dhammapada has about 400. But the Dhammapada goes into hell, states of woe, and there's a lot more metaphors and aphorisms there. So the Dhammapada has stuff that the Yoga Sutras doesn't have. But the Yoga Sutras is so essential. It's so essential. Sutra 146. The states of samadhi described previously are dependent upon previous knowledge, which can lead to attachment. The levels of samadhi previously described are with seed, which could bring one back into bondage or create further mental disturbances. Sutra 146, that was. Sutra 147 now. 4 sutras left. From mastery of nirvichara samadhi, purity is attained and undisturbed illuminated consciousness flows, igniting the spiritual light of the self. When you're first hearing it, when people first hear this sutra, it's like wah, 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 wah. I had to go and meditate on this in the forest by myself, like for hours and hours and hours, to be able to grasp this text. I mean, for 10 months, I studied it over and over again. Listen to this line. Listen to this sutra, 147. From mastery of nirvichara samadhi, purity is attained, and undisturbed illuminated consciousness flows, igniting the spiritual light of the self. So you hear the line, you have to be able to understand it. Then when you understand it, you have to embody it. It has to become a part of you. This is proper study of the sutras. I give a second translation. We're just going to move on to Sutra 148. In my translation, I'm giving comparative reasoning. So I'm giving multiple translations for each sutra. It's the fastest way to learn them. Repetition of the sutras is the only way to achieve it. When consciousness and wisdom become one, limitations are removed. Then the practitioner is capable of knowing anything and everything. So this is what I'm saying. The person who got nasty with me, a couple people who got nasty with me. It's funny because the people don't know each other, but 2 or 3 people actually said to me, "What do you think, you're omniscient?" That's what they said. 2 or 3 different people. Maybe you think I'm omniscient. I didn't say I was omniscient, but this is the Sutra 148. Okay. When consciousness and wisdom become one, limitations are removed, then the practitioner is capable of knowing anything and everything. See? So they're telling you, as soon as your consciousness and your knowledge become one, you become omniscient, you become all-knowing. Okay? 149. The absolute truth is all-encompassing, limitless, and infinite. So there's meditations that you do on the dreaming state, the dreamless state, and the awakening state, and there's meditations that you do on infinity and all-encompassing. So the universe, the omniverse, the multiverse, and God. So you're meditating on all aspects of existence, infinity, everything that exists, and then the creator of it. And then when you become one with that, when your soul becomes one with the soul of the universe, then you graduated yoga and Buddhism. It's the same goal. It's the same goal. But if you don't hear these sentences, it's you're very slim chance to make it. If you're hearing the sentences, that's good karma for you. Like you have a very big chance of getting out of samsara, the cycle of pain, unhappiness, death. Sutra 150. This one, and there's one more sutra left. The light of this realization bears the fruit of an evolved life. All previous mental impressions are left behind and new ones are prevented from forming. So when you realize omniscience, when you realize oneness, infinity, all knowingness, when you realize it, you become more spiritually evolved and you have a spiritually evolved life after you realize it. If you lose the realization, you have to start over again. So if you're climbing the ladder and you forget, you fall down the ladder, you have to keep climbing it over and over again. So just to hear that sentence is so much good fortune. It's like, to run into an enlightened being and have a conversation with them, you have such good karma, and your ability to attain enlightenment, the odds of reaching enlightenment just went from 1 in a billion to like 50-50 chance you might reach enlightenment if you hear that. This is the last one in the first pada, Sutra 151. This will be the end of the study for the day. When this impression is wiped out, all impressions are completely eradicated and perfect self-realization is achieved. I give two translations for this. I'll give you both. When the light of this evolved state is also erased, seedless samadhi dawns. Now, here's where philosophy transcends conceptual realization. The whole point of philosophy, I don't care, Taoist philosophy, Christian philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, Western philosophy, whatever it is, the whole point of the philosophy is to be able to transcend limited thinking, dualistic thinking, and thinking that can only be seen with the eyes. That's the whole point of philosophy. All right? I'll read these two again. Sutra 151. When the impression is wiped out, all impressions are completely eradicated and perfect self-realization is achieved. We're going to end there for today, guys. My translation is available for sale on Amazon. Please give it a buy. It's Yoga Sutras by Vincent Ferrer. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below, and we will have more studies. We're going to be doing the second pada, the third pada, and the fourth pada. These Yoga Sutra studies are going to be ongoing. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Wishing you all well.